What happens when a simple Wi-Fi password change unravels a sinister plot right next door? Marcus Taylor, a quiet software engineer, discovers his privacy has been shockingly violated, but the truth hidden within his own router is far more terrifying than he could have imagined. You won't believe the lengths some people go to. Don't miss what happens next. You cut off my internet access. Do you have any idea how much this inconveniences me? It's a personal insult. Marcus Karen Whitley's voice, raw and piercing, ripped through the meticulously curated tranquility of Marcus Taylor's suburban morning. The sound was an abrasive cacophony, a discordant note in the otherwise peaceful symphony of chirping birds and distant lawnmowers. Marcus, a man who built his life around precision, logic, and the profound sanctity of personal space, stood rooted on his porch, a mixture of disbelief and a simmering, almost incandescent, frustration warring within him. He watched, aghast as his neighbor, a woman he had long categorized as merely overly friendly, a polite euphemism for uncomfortably intrusive, stormed across his perfectly manicured lawn. In her hand, she clutched a familiar black Wi-Fi router, brandishing it like a misplaced weapon, its blinking lights a mocking testament to the digital war she unilaterally declared. Marcus Taylor, at 38, was a creature of habit and intellect. As a senior software engineer at a prominent tech firm, his days were spent navigating complex algorithms, architecting robust systems, and debugging intricate code. His professional world demanded sharp focus and an unwavering commitment to order. This discipline extended seamlessly into his personal life. His home in Meadow Creek, a suburban haven of neatly trimmed hedges and hushed quietude, was more than just a house. It was his sanctuary. It was where he retreated from the relentless hum of servers and the ceaseless demands of innovation, a place where he could immerse himself in personal projects, delve into obscure tech journals, or simply exist in blissful, uninterrupted solitude. His privacy was not merely a preference. It was a fundamental pillar of his well-being, as essential as the air he breathed. Yet, for the past 3 months, that sanctuary had been subtly, insidiously compromised. It began innocuously enough. Minor network slowdowns, intermittent buffering during his evening streams. He initially dismissed them as typical ISP jitters, the inevitable gremlins in the machine. But then came the inexplicable data spikes, occurring at odd hours, late nights, early mornings, when he was certain he wasn't actively using bandwidth. A nagging feeling. A software engineer's finely tuned intuition for anomalies pricked at him. It was a faint whisper at first, then a persistent hum, growing louder with each inexplicable data burst. His meticulously configured network, usually a model of efficiency, felt sluggish, burdened. Finally, unable to ignore the unsettling anomalies, Marcus ran a deep diagnostic. He accessed his router's administrative interface, pulling up detailed logs, cross-referencing IP addresses, and monitoring real-time connections. The results were chilling. An unfamiliar device, persistently connected, pulling significant data streams, a phantom occupant on his private network. He traced the MAC address, a unique identifier, and cross-referenced it with known device types. The grim realization solidified into a cold, hard fact: it was a smart television, consistent with the model Karen had proudly boasted about just weeks prior. For 3 months, the woman living less than 50 feet away had been freeloading off his internet, a silent digital parasite feeding on his bandwidth, breaching the invisible walls of his carefully constructed privacy. His initial reaction wasn't the explosive anger Karen was now displaying. It was a profound sense of violation, a deep-seated discomfort that gnawed at his core. It wasn't just about the cost of bandwidth, which was negligible to him. It was about the audacity, the utter disregard for his personal space, the brazen entitlement of a neighbor who had always pushed boundaries. Karen had a history of this. She was the one who would show up uninvited with a plate of freshly baked cookies, then linger for an hour, probing about his work, his weekends, his dating life. She'd borrow tools and forget to return them, accidentally leave her trash bins in front of his driveway, Each incident, minor on its own, chipped away at his sense of security, reinforcing his need for solitude. Now she had breached his digital perimeter, an even more egregious trespass. He hadn't confronted her directly then. Confrontation. Marcus knew from bitter experience with past difficult neighbors, would only invite more drama, more of the very thing he sought to avoid. He was a problem solver, a fixer. He opted for a silent, surgical strike, a clean excision of the problem. He logged into his router, navigated to the Wi-Fi security settings, and changed his password. A simple, necessary act of self-preservation. He thought that would be the end of it, a quiet reassertion of his digital sovereignty. He was wrong. Karen's immediate, almost instantaneous eruption confirmed his suspicions, not just of her freeloading, but of her utterly unhinged sense of entitlement. She hadn't even given him a day of peace. Unlawful disconnection. She shrieked, her voice echoing down the street, drawing the curtains back in several neighboring houses. Her face was contorted into a grotesque mask of righteous indignation, her usually meticulously styled blonde hair now slightly disheveled from her frantic dash. "I need that internet. How am I supposed to watch my shows? My smart home relies on it. You can't just do this." "Marcus, we had an arrangement." Arrangement. Marcus stared at her, dumbfounded, his hands clenching at his sides. "Karen, there was no arrangement. This is my private network. You were using my internet without my permission. But I've been using it for months. It's practically communal now. You just changed it without warning." "That's just rude," she cried, clutching the router tighter to her chest as if it were a lost child. Her eyes, wide and accusatory, narrowed into slits. "You're discriminating against me. Just because I'm a single woman living alone, you think you can cut me off? This is harassment." "I'm calling the police," Marcus watched, aghast, as she pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen with furious, almost manic urgency. His calm, logical world was rapidly descending into an absurd, theatrical nightmare. The idea of police involvement over a Wi-Fi password was so preposterous, so utterly beyond the realm of reason, that a dark, cynical laugh almost escaped him. But Karen wasn't laughing. Her face was contorted in genuine, self-righteous fury. A woman truly believing herself to be the wrong party, a victim of an egregious injustice. The sheer audacity, the warped perception of reality, was breathtaking. Within minutes, the distant wail of a siren began to grow louder. Approaching his street with unnerving speed, Marcus sighed, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. The sound of the approaching law enforcement vehicle, a stark reminder of the escalating chaos. He knew this was going to be a long morning. He also knew he should have called his sister, Lena, a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer with an uncanny knack for navigating these kinds of human-shaped legal minefields. He just hadn't anticipated the explosion, the sheer, unbridled theatricality of Karen's response. This wasn't just about a Wi-Fi password anymore. This was an invasion, a public spectacle that would undoubtedly become neighborhood gossip, and the beginning of something far more insidious than he could possibly imagine. He felt a cold dread creep into his stomach, a premonition that this was only the first ripple in a much larger, darker pool. The innocent act of securing his network had inadvertently triggered a chain of events, unveiling a hidden agenda he was not yet equipped to comprehend. The patrol car glided to a stop just beyond Marcus's driveway, its presence a stark, intrusive symbol of the escalating absurdity. Officer Reyes, a young woman with a stern but weary demeanor, emerged from the vehicle, her gaze sweeping from the frenzied Karen to the composed but clearly exasperated Marcus. Her uniform, crisp and authoritative, seemed out of place against the backdrop of quaint suburban homes and manicured lawns. This was hardly the kind of high-stakes drama she usually encountered. Karen, however, acted as if a global crisis had just unfolded. "Officer, thank goodness you're here," Karen wailed, rushing forward, her voice pitched to a theatrical tremor that could easily be heard 2 blocks away. She thrust the router forward as if it were damning evidence. "This man, Marcus Taylor, he has unlawfully disconnected my internet. For months, we've had a shared understanding, a neighborly courtesy, and now he's just cut me off. It's harassment, it's discrimination. He's targeting me. Officer Reyes, her expression unreadable, listened patiently, her eyes occasionally darting to Marcus, who simply crossed his arms. Maintaining a posture of quiet dignity, he knew better than to interrupt a Karen mid-tirade. Experience had taught him that the best strategy was often to let the storm pass, then calmly present the facts. The neighborhood, usually bustling with morning joggers and dog walkers, had grown eerily quiet, windows and doors slightly ajar, residents undoubtedly listening to the unfolding drama. Marcus felt a familiar tightening in his chest, the weight of being a black man in America, knowing that even in the most trivial disputes, perception could be dangerously skewed, and that his calm could be misconstrued as aggression, his defense as defiance. "Ma'am, could you please explain what happened?" calmly Officer Reyes requested, her voice even, devoid of judgment. She carefully took the router from Karen's outstretched hand, examining it briefly, examining it. "He changed the password," Karen exclaimed, as if this was the ultimate betrayal. "Without warning, he just locked me out, my smart lights, my security camera, my streaming services. Everything is off. It's a violation of our neighborly agreement." Marcus finally stepped forward, his voice low and steady, a stark contrast to Karen's histrionics. "Officer, my name is Marcus Taylor. This is my private Wi-Fi network. I recently discovered that Ms. Whitley has been accessing it without my knowledge or permission for the past 3 months. I simply changed my password, as is my right, to secure my network. There was never any agreement for her to use my internet." Officer Reyes turned to Marcus, her expression softening slightly. "Is that true? Ms. Whitley, were you using his internet without his explicit permission?" Karen stammered, her theatrical bravado momentarily deflating. "Well, he never said I couldn't, and it's just Wi-Fi. Everyone shares Wi-Fi, don't they? It's common courtesy. And besides, I just bought a new router, and he cut me off just as I was trying to set it up. It was sabotage." A subtle furrow appeared on Officer Reyes's brow. "Ms. Whitley, using someone else's private Wi-Fi without their permission is technically trespassing. Even if it's digital, it's not a criminal matter unless there's malicious intent, but it's certainly not something you can demand continued access to." She handed the router back to Karen. "I understand your frustration, but Mr. Taylor is within his rights to secure his own network." Just then, Lena Taylor, Marcus's younger sister, pulled into the driveway. Lena, a sharp and formidable corporate lawyer, stepped out of her sleek sedan, her professional attire perfectly suited for the courtroom. Not a suburban street drama, she had an innate ability to cut through noise and get straight to the facts. Marcus hadn't even had time to call her, but she had likely received a frantic, distorted text message from him, or simply sensed his impending doom. "What's going on here?" Marcus Lena asked, her voice calm but with an underlying steel that commanded attention. Her eyes, intelligent and assessing, swept over the scene, quickly sizing up Karen's disheveled fury and Officer Reyes's diplomatic stance. "Karen's upset I changed my Wi-Fi password after I found her using my internet without permission." Marcus explained, his relief at Lena's arrival palpable. Lena raised an eyebrow, a clear signal of her incredulity. "And you called the police for this, Ms. Whitley?" Her gaze settled on Karen, a silent challenge in her eyes. Karen, suddenly facing a more formidable opponent, stammered, He's harassing me, and I just bought a new router. I was trying to configure it, and he intentionally cut me off." She gestured wildly at the router in her hand. "This is the one I just bought. I was trying to connect it to my smart home, and he just ruined everything." Lena's eyes lingered on the router Karen was holding. It looked strikingly similar to Marcus's older model. Her legal mind, trained to spot inconsistencies and anomalies, immediately began to work. "Wait a minute," Lena said, her voice thoughtful. "Marcus, show me your router." Marcus went inside, returning a moment later with his own router, the one he had replaced a few weeks prior. Sitting idle in his study, he handed it to Lena. She took it, examining it closely, turning it over in her hands. Her fingers brushed against the plastic casing, feeling for anything unusual. As a lawyer specializing in tech and intellectual property, Lena was surprisingly adept with hardware. She rotated the device, her gaze sharp. Then her fingers stopped. They traced a faint seam, almost imperceptible, near the ventilation grates. Then, her eyes widened. "Marcus," Lena said, her voice dropping to a serious, almost hushed tone. Did you ever open this router up?" Marcus frowned. "No, why would I? It was working fine, just getting a bit old. So I got a new one." Lena's expression hardened. "Because this router, it's been tampered with. Look," she pointed to a tiny, almost invisible scratch mark near a screw hole. Then another, barely visible, where the plastic casing met. These screws show signs of being removed and replaced. And this seems, it's not perfectly flush. Someone's been inside this router. A cold dread washed over Marcus. His technician's mind immediately leaped to the worst-case scenario, tampering with a router, especially when it involves someone surreptitiously accessing the network. It could mean only one thing. "Tampered with," he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "You mean, like a bug?" A spy device. Lena's eyes, now gleaming with a mixture of grim realization and righteous anger, met his. Potentially. And if that's the case, this isn't just a civil dispute about Wi-Fi access anymore. This is a potential felony, illegal surveillance. Her gaze snapped back to Karen, who had gone pale, her usual theatrical bluster replaced by a look of genuine fear. Officer Reyes, who had been observing the exchange with growing curiosity, now looked visibly concerned. "A spy device. Ma'am, are you certain?" "I'm not certain yet, officer. But the physical evidence suggests deliberate access to the internal components," Lena stated with professional authority. "And given Miss Whitley's admitted unauthorized access to Marcus's network, and her rather intense reaction to being disconnected, this needs to be investigated thoroughly. This router needs to be forensically examined." She held up the router, its innocent blinking lights now seeming sinister, like unseen eyes. Karen took an involuntary step back, her eyes darting between Lena, Marcus, and the increasingly serious Officer Reyes. Her earlier fury had evaporated, replaced by a dawning terror. "No, that's ridiculous. I just wanted my internet back. I didn't do anything like that." Her voice was a pathetic whimper now, a stark contrast to her earlier shrieks. "Then you won't mind if we have it examined, will you?" "Cease." Whitley. Lena's tone was dangerously calm, a predator scenting blood. She turned to Officer Reyes. "Officer, given the circumstances, I believe this constitutes reasonable suspicion for a full investigation. Not only could this be illegal surveillance, but it could also be a breach of Marcus's personal data, his intellectual property, even his professional secrets. My brother works on highly sensitive projects." The implications hung heavy in the air. Marcus, who had always sought to avoid conflict, suddenly found himself at the epicenter of a chilling revelation. He had only wanted to reclaim his privacy, to secure his network, but Karen's desperate attempt to regain access had backfired spectacularly, pulling back a curtain to reveal a much darker, more disturbing obsession than mere Wi-Fi freeloading. He looked at Karen, whose face was now a mask of pure, unadulterated panic, and a cold certainty settled in his gut. This wasn't just about a Wi-Fi router. This was about control, about obsession, about a neighbor who had crossed an unimaginable line. And he had, unknowingly, caught her in the act. The prey had just become the hunter. The sudden shift in the atmosphere was palpable. Karen, who minutes earlier had been a storm of self-righteous fury, now stood frozen, her face drained of all color, her eyes wide with a raw, desperate fear. The mention of felony and illegal surveillance had extinguished her theatrical bravado, revealing the trembling, guilty woman beneath. Officer Reyes, initially dismissive of a petty neighborly spat, now regarded the scene with a sharp, professional intensity. Lena Taylor, ever the strategist, seized the advantage, her voice gaining a steely edge that promised no quarter. "Officer Reyes, this is Marcus's original router," Lena explained, holding it up, the small, almost imperceptible scratch marks now seeming glaringly obvious in the morning light. "As you can see, there are clear signs of tampering, given that Miss Whitley has admitted to unauthorized access to Marcus's network, and her extreme reaction to being disconnected. It strongly suggests a malicious intent beyond simple freeloading." Lena paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "A forensic examination will confirm if any unauthorized hardware or software has been installed. If so, Ms. Whitley could be facing serious charges, not just for unauthorized access, but for privacy invasion, potentially even corporate espionage." Considering Marcus's profession, Marcus, still reeling from the revelation, looked at his sister with a mix of awe and dread. He was a master of digital security. Yet his own physical security had been so subtly breached. The thought of a hidden camera, a listening device, nestled within his trusted router, sending his private life, his conversations, his work, directly into Karen's eager hands, sent a chill down his spine that transcended mere anger. It was a profound violation, a chilling echo of his deepest fears about intrusion and loss of control. He felt a sickening lurch in his stomach, recalling late-night video calls with his parents, casual conversations with friends, even moments of solitary reflection, all potentially observed, recorded, analyzed. Karen, sensing the tightening net, tried to backtrack, her voice a desperate squeak. "No, this is insane. I didn't put anything in there. I just wanted internet." She gestured vaguely at her own house, as if to prove her innocence by proximity. "You're making this up. You're trying to frame you." "Mrs. Whitley." Lena's voice was cool, laced with a contempt that cut deeper than any shout. "We're merely following the evidence. A tampered device, your admitted unauthorized access, your disproportionate reaction to being cut off. It paints a very clear picture." Lena then turned to Officer Reyes, her demeanor shifting to one of professional counsel. "Officer, I advise you to confiscate both routers, the one Marcus used and the one Ms. Whitley is holding, for forensic analysis, given the potential for electronic surveillance. This is no longer a civil dispute. This is a criminal investigation." Officer Reyes, after a moment of consideration, nodded. "I understand. Miss Taylor? Miss Whitley, I'm afraid I'll have to take both routers as evidence. You'll need to come down to the station to give a statement." Her tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. Karen's eyes darted frantically, searching for an escape, but there was none. She looked utterly trapped, a deer caught in headlights. "No, you can't. I have rights, and Marcus has rights too, Ms. Whitley. Rights to privacy, to security, to not have his home illegally monitored," Lena retorted, her gaze unwavering. Just as Officer Reyes reached out to take the routers, a timid voice from across the street broke the tense silence. Officer Reyes." All eyes turned to Mr. Delgado, an elderly, soft-spoken neighbor who lived 2 houses down. He was a widower, known for his meticulous gardening and his quiet nature. He shuffled hesitantly towards them, his face etched with a mixture of fear and newfound resolve. "Mr. Delgado," Officer Reyes acknowledged. Surprised, Mr. Delgado wrung his hands, glancing nervously at Karen, who now looked like a cornered animal. I know this sounds strange, but I think Ms. Whitley might have done something similar to me." A collective gasp, almost imperceptible, rippled through the few neighbors who had slowly gathered at their windows, drawn by the siren and the ongoing commotion. Marcus and Lena exchanged a look, a twist they hadn't anticipated, but one that instantly validated their suspicions. "What do you mean?" Mr. Delgado, Lena prompted gently, her lawyer's intuition telling her this was a critical moment. Mr. Delgado swallowed hard. "A few months ago, my internet started acting funny, and then I found this. He reached into his pocket, his hand trembling slightly, and pulled out a small, flat, black device, no bigger than a thumb drive, with a tiny, almost invisible camera lens on one side. It looked disturbingly professional. She came over, offering to help me with my new smart doorbell installation. She said she was having trouble with her own internet and wanted to see if mine was working properly. The next day, I found this tucked behind my router. I didn't know what it was. I was too scared to say anything. She's very intimidating. The air crackled with a new, heavier tension. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern. Karen Whitley wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was a predator, a systematic invader of privacy. The small device in Mr. Delgado's hand was a damning piece of physical evidence, more concrete than the subtle signs of tampering on Marcus's router. Karen let out a choked sob, her facade crumbling completely. You can't prove anything. He's lying. Her voice was shrill, but it lacked conviction. This changes everything, Officer Reyes stated grimly, her gaze hardening as she looked at Karen. Ms. Whitley, you are now a person of interest in a potential felony investigation for illegal surveillance. I am advising you of your rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As Officer Reyes began to recite the Miranda warning, a profound sense of vindication, mixed with a chilling realization, washed over Marcus. He had been right to trust his instincts, right to change that password, but the cost of that simple act was revealing the dark underbelly of his quiet suburban life, exposing a woman who had been operating with impunity, preying on her neighbor's vulnerabilities. Karen, who had sought to ensnare him in a petty dispute, had instead walked straight into her own trap, exposing her far more sinister activities to the light. The fight for his privacy had become a battle for justice, not just for himself, but for his unsuspecting neighbors. The quiet engineer was now a key witness, an accidental detective in a suburban nightmare. The suburban street, moments ago a stage for Karen's histrionics and Marcus's quiet exasperation, rapidly morphed into a grim tableau of law enforcement efficiency. Yellow tape, stark and artificial against the vibrant green of manicured lawns, materialized seemingly out of nowhere, cordoning off Karen Whitley's property. Patrol cars multiplied, their flashing blue lights painting streaks across the morning air. Officer Reyes, now joined by a phalanx of plainclothes detectives, forensic specialists in sterile gloves, and even a white-suited evidence technician, moved with a quiet, purposeful urgency. The routers, Marcus's old, tampered device, the one Karen had clutched like a lifeline, and Mr. Delgado's tiny, incriminating camera were meticulously documented, photographed, and then sealed in clear plastic bags, destined for the unforgiving scrutiny of a lab. Karen, her face a grotesque mask of raw terror and a desperate, childlike plea for understanding, was led away in handcuffs. Her earlier theatrical wails had dissolved into guttural sobs, ragged and pathetic, echoing the very real and dramatic crumbling of her carefully constructed reality. Marcus watched her go, a strange, complex cocktail of emotions churning within him. There was the undeniable wave of relief, vast and deep, like a tide finally receding after a relentless storm. The intrusion was over. The suffocating presence of an unseen observer had been purged. Justice, in its nascent, procedural form, was beginning to unfurl its wings. But beneath the relief, a profound sadness lingered. It was a sadness for the twisted, perverse loneliness that must have driven Karen to such chilling lengths, a deep-seated pathology that turned neighborly curiosity into criminal obsession. Yet, interwoven with this melancholy was a fierce, almost incandescent pride in Lena. His sister, with her razor-sharp legal mind and unwavering resolve, had, with a few precise questions and an intuitive grasp of the sinister, peeled back the layers of suburban normalcy to expose the putrid truth beneath. He had always been the engineer, the architect of systems, The one who built and debugged and restored order with lines of elegant code, Lena, he realized now more than ever, was the architect of justice, the one who dismantled deceit, exposing hidden mechanisms with the precision of a skilled surgeon. The investigation that unfurled in the days and weeks that followed was both swift and devastatingly conclusive. The forensic analysis of Marcus's old router yielded the first, most chilling confirmation of Lena's suspicions. Embedded deep within the device's plastic casing, cunningly wired into its power supply and almost imperceptible to the untrained eye, was a sophisticated miniature surveillance chip. It wasn't merely a data logger, it was a professional-grade spy tool capable of capturing high-quality audio and video, as well as meticulously logging all network traffic, every website visited, every piece of data transmitted. The discovery sent a fresh wave of nausea through Marcus. This wasn't just about stealing internet, it was about stealing a life, a personal narrative, an identity. The inexplicable data spikes he had observed, the subtle warmth emanating from the router, even when Marcus was not actively using it. Every anomaly now clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The thought of a hidden camera, a listening device, nestled within his trusted router, sending his most private moments, his unguarded conversations with friends and family, his highly sensitive work, directly into Karen's eager, perverse hands, sent a profound chill down his spine that transcended mere anger. It was an utter, undeniable violation, a chilling echo of his deepest fears about intrusion and the agonizing loss of control. He vividly recalled late-night video calls with his parents, casual conversations with Lena about family matters, even moments of solitary reflection, lost in thought, all potentially observed, recorded, analyzed by an unseen eye. The intimacy of the breach was almost unbearable. Further searches, executed under the authority of a meticulously prepared warrant issued on the formidable strength of Marcus's tampered router and Mr. Delgado's brave testimony, unearthed a chilling trove of evidence at Karen's seemingly innocuous home. Hidden cameras were found strategically placed to monitor the exteriors of several other neighboring homes, their feeds stored on a complex network of hard drives in her soundproof basement. Recordings of intimate conversations, detailed logs of online activities, even the most mundane comings and goings of her neighbors, had been meticulously documented and categorized. It was a sprawling digital tapestry of surveillance, weaving together the private lives of an entire block into a monstrous, voyeuristic archive. The police discovered a hidden compartment behind a false wall in her garage, containing an alarming array of sophisticated listening devices, high-gain signal boosters, and other clandestine electronic equipment, tools clearly designed for illicit, long-term monitoring. Karen Whitley wasn't just a nosy neighbor with boundary issues. She was a meticulously organized, deeply disturbed voyeur, consumed by an obsessive, almost predatory, need to control and observe the lives around her. Her initial, explosive outrage over the Wi-Fi had merely been a desperate, ill-conceived attempt to regain access to her illicit observatory, a digital window into the lives she craved to dominate. Mr. Delgado's courage in stepping forward proved invaluable, a vital linchpin in the rapidly unfolding case. His testimony, combined with the irrefutable forensic evidence from Marcus's router, solidified the prosecution's almost ironclad case. Other neighbors, initially hesitant to voice their vague suspicions, now came forward, their suppressed unease finally finding an outlet. They recalled Karen's overly inquisitive nature, her uncanny knowledge of their personal affairs, small, seemingly innocuous details that had always seemed a little off, but were now terrifyingly clear. One family remembered her casually mentioning their daughter's college applications even before they had told anyone outside their immediate circle. Another couple spoke of Karen knowing about a private domestic dispute between them before they had discussed it with anyone beyond the walls of their home. These seemingly innocuous incidents, once dismissed as mere gossip, now painted a grim, chilling picture of systematic, deeply invasive surveillance. Lena, acting as Marcus's legal counsel, guided him through every harrowing step of the process with unwavering professionalism and sisterly care. She meticulously ensured his privacy was protected during the intrusive investigation and that his rights as a victim were not only acknowledged but fiercely upheld. She worked tirelessly with the district attorney's office, a formidable advocate, pushing relentlessly for the strongest possible charges against Karen. Marcus, initially a reluctant, almost unwilling participant in the public drama, found a newfound resolve as the horrifying scope of Karen's actions became clear. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about exposing a profoundly dangerous individual and ensuring the safety, the sanctity, and the peace of his entire community. He spoke with quiet conviction and authority to the investigators, detailing his technical findings, helping them to meticulously trace and understand the intricate digital footprints of Karen's pervasive intrusion. The trial, when it finally arrived, was mercifully brief, marked by the overwhelming, almost insurmountable, mountain of evidence against Karen. Her defense, attempting to portray her as a lonely eccentric suffering from untreated mental health issues, crumbled under Lena's relentless, incisive cross-examination in the irrefutable, cold objectivity of the forensic reports. Lena meticulously presented the technical details of the surveillance devices, detailing with surgical precision how they compromised not only physical privacy, but also digital security, transforming Karen from a potentially pitiable figure into a calculated, systematic threat to an entire neighborhood. Marcus, called to testify, articulated with quiet power the profound sense of violation he had experienced, his calm, authoritative demeanor contrasting sharply with Karen's frantic, often incoherent outbursts. His testimony, delivered with chilling clarity, painted a vivid picture of how easily sophisticated technology could be weaponized against the unsuspecting, turning a home into a panopticon. Karen Whitley was found guilty on multiple, severe counts of illegal surveillance, privacy invasion, and attempted hacking. The judge, citing the premeditated and widespread nature of her actions and the undeniable psychological trauma inflicted upon her numerous victims, handed down a severe sentence. She was remanded to a secure psychiatric facility for comprehensive evaluation and compulsory treatment, followed by a substantial, unequivocal prison sentence, ensuring that she would no longer pose a threat to any community. Her dark obsession had ultimately consumed her, leading her from a seemingly ordinary suburban home to the desolate confines of a state institution. In the aftermath, a profound, albeit cautious, sense of relief settled over Meadow Creek. The garish yellow tape was gone, replaced by a renewed, almost tangible sense of community vigilance and solidarity. Marcus, once a quiet recluse, found himself reluctantly stepping into a new, unexpected role within his neighborhood. His experience, his inherent knowledge of technology, and his quiet courage had inadvertently made him a local hero. Neighbors he had barely exchanged pleasantries with now approached him with genuine gratitude, seeking not only advice on securing their own networks, but tentatively offering true friendship. He even helped a visibly relieved Mr. Delgado install a new, secure smart doorbell system, free of charge, ensuring his peace of mind. The incident profoundly changed Marcus. His deep-seated belief in the sanctity of privacy remained unshaken, but it was now tempered with a newfound, pragmatic understanding of the inherent vulnerability nestled within modern connectivity. He emerged from the ordeal not bitter, but empowered. He became an inadvertent, yet passionate, advocate for digital literacy and personal cybersecurity within his community, even giving a well-attended presentation at the local community center on how to protect oneself from digital intrusions. He patiently helped several elderly neighbors set up strong Wi-Fi passwords, showed them how to check for unauthorized devices, and explained the subtle signs of digital compromise. His relationship with Lena deepened, forged in the crucible of shared adversity and the quiet triumph over a formidable foe. They often joked that the quiet engineer and the sharp lawyer made an unbeatable team, especially when facing the surreal absurdities of suburban life. Life in Meadow Creek slowly, organically, returned to its tranquil rhythm, but with a heightened, almost collective, awareness, a quiet acknowledgement of the unseen battles that could rage just beyond one's doorstep. Marcus Taylor, the man who had always craved solitude and absolute privacy, had inadvertently become the steadfast guardian of it for his entire neighborhood. He had faced down a hidden, insidious threat, not with brute force, but with logic, unwavering integrity, and the invaluable support of his brilliant sister. The chilling invasion of his Wi-Fi had violently opened his eyes to a darker truth, but in bravely confronting it, he had ultimately brought light, security, and a renewed sense of peace back to his corner of the world. The silence of his home was once again truly his own, unmonitored, unheard, and finally, unequivocally safe. The unsettling tale of Marcus Taylor reminds us that even in the most peaceful suburbs, unseen threats can lurk. His courageous fight for privacy exposed a shocking crime, proving that justice can prevail against even the most audacious invasions. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey. If you were captivated by Marcus's story, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more compelling narratives.